Hey, good morning, everybody. It should be Monday, I think. I'm recording this on a Friday, so hopefully, everybody has a good weekend. Yeah. All right. I can't tell you what I did this weekend because it's not the weekend yet. I think I'm going to have to work a little bit, though, for my father-in-law and mop some floors for him. And I don't know, gonna try and get outside a little bit so we're not stuck in front of a computer all day. So that'll be kind of nice. So, anyways, for this week, we have coming up for you. Let's see. Oh, set of notes today, set of notes tomorrow, notes Wednesday. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how many notes sets we've got. We've got Thanksgiving break coming up. Remember that next Monday, you're going to have regular class, as far as I know. And then your parents can pop in on Zoom and see how we're doing, see how you're doing. I'm doing okay. They don't need to check on me. That's weird. But anyways, so they can check on your grades and stuff. So yeah, so shouldn't be too tough of a week, but you do have a test coming up, and yeah, I have to think about how many notes sets we've got left. But anyways, this at least is what we've got next is the call for independence. So this takes place after we have started into issues with the British. Yes, the British. And it is time for us to take care of some things. As we know that the British, yeah, I'm chewing gum. It's morning, so make sure my breath is pretty good. But anyways, so we have issues with the British, and so now we're going to talk about riding for freedom. So not riding like riding a horse, but instead writing instead. So the YouTube video that I actually have, let me click on it and see what it is. Oh yes. All right. So I'm going to link this video in because I know the sound is terrible. But for you guys who know, One Republic's "Too Late to Apologize" song, here's a little parody on that, I suppose, is "Too Late to Apologize" in terms of the Declaration of Independence. So this one's pretty cool, so I'll share the link down below. But back to the regular note set. There we go. So writing for independence or writing for freedom. So in this case, the big idea is to make sure that you get information out to everybody. I don't get rid of my gum. There we go. It's a little bit better. But anyways, is to let people know what's going on in the colonies. And the idea is that you inform them as much as possible so that they can have some kind of an opinion themselves and possibly do something if they need to. So that's why this is called writing for freedom, because we're going to talk about some forms of writing that they actually did back in the day. So the first one is called common sense. Now, we should all know what common sense is. It doesn't mean that we actually have common sense. If I put myself right there, do I look like Deadpool? Is that cool? No. Okay. I tried. But anyways, so the idea is clearly, I need some more sleep. But anyways, but the idea is common sense is that as Deadpool there says, it's so rare it's a superpower. But it's not something that is necessarily taught. It's more of an innate sense of knowing right from wrong, I suppose, and the right decision to make in different circumstances. So common sense is not like we talk about it today, but instead it was actually written by somebody named Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine, Paine, for those who paying attention, in 1776. So this was like a little booklet, a little pamphlet, and it was common sense in terms of what he was writing about was telling people why we should break up with Britain and the fact that it was actually possible for us to do so. In that some people were on the fence, some people had no idea about it. So he writes this booklet, this little pamphlet, 50 pages. You're like, oh, that's a lot. 50 pages is not that much, especially when you're talking about perhaps leaving Britain. But he is telling people that here's why it makes sense for us to break up with Britain, for us to go to war, whatever. That's the writing is, again, at the time period, there's no TV, there's no CNN, there's no Twitter, there's nothing like that. So the reading is the way that they're going to get their information across. So in this pamphlet, he calls King George, who's king at the time period, a royal brute. A royal brute. Yes, you have to roll the tongue when you say royal. Try it. My kids can't roll their tongue. My wife can't either. Royal. Yeah, it's like O'Crr. Yeah. Oh man, did I just do that? That's terrible. But anyways, called King George Royal Brute. Now, Brute is a big, kind of apey guy. If you remember the poster in the back of my room, there's one that has a big ape with a almost like a ball bat in his hand carrying a woman that says "Destroy this mad brute." So it's almost like a big kind of caveman-y person with no brains at all. Usually kind of ugly and big and hairy and things like that. Don't say me. That's not cool. But anyways, called King George Royal Brute. So that's fighting words right there. That how dare you disparage our king? And ended up selling 500,000 copies. So 500,000 copies, and that's pretty good at the time period. There's your bell. It's pretty good at the time period to sell that many copies, 500,000. But it also tells you that people were interested in this and wanted to know more about what was going on. And, you know, in the case of them buying the stuff, then they probably gave it to somebody else too. So here it says common sense, just because you can't doesn't mean you should. In other words, it's a forklift, lifting a forklift, lifting something else. So probably not the best idea, probably not common sense. But in this book, he used strong logic and powerful words to inspire the colonists. So if I pull up my bookie book, turn to page 171. Man, I was like 5 pages off. It says, 171. I challenge the warmest advocate for reconciliation, meaning someone who's really pushing for us to stick together with Britain, to show a single advantage that this continent can reap by being connected with Great Britain. I repeat the challenge, not a single advantage is derived. In other words, those big words, he's saying, you know, what do we gain from sticking with Great Britain? What do we get with sticking with England? He's like, nothing. We don't. So why should we even do that in the first place? Our corn will fetch its price in any market in Europe, and our imported goods must be paid for. Buy them where we will. Whenever war wakes up, whenever a war breaks out between England and any foreign power, the trade of America goes to ruin because of our connection with Britain. So they're saying, again, we're not gaining anything. Anytime England goes to war with somebody, our market goes to heck because we're connected with England. Everything that is right or natural pleads for separation. The blood of the slain, the weeping voice of nature cries, 'tis time to part. So again, that's what he's saying in this book, Common Sense, or pamphlet, or whatever you call it. That here are the reasons why, bang, 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 we need to break up with England. And again, step by step, and sometimes that's what people need in order to make a decision on something. So then the next one is the Declaration of Independence. Now, this is obviously going to be our main writing, and on this video is the same thing that I had before, so that link doesn't matter. Get out of here. Oh, it's still going to play. All right, it's the same link. I thought it was something else. But the Declaration of Independence is a different type of writing. Now, this is the big one. This is not the Constitution. People all the time mess up these two documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. They think the Declaration of Independence is a set of rules, and it is not. Instead, it's what we call a Dear John letter. Now, if you're not familiar with the Dear John letter, it's also a breakup letter. Now, a Dear John letter typically is something that you write to somebody, then you leave somewhere and you break up, and you just don't talk to them, really. So it's kind of like modern times. If you text someone to break up with them, that's probably pretty crummy of you. But it's almost in the sense that we did with the Declaration of Independence, in that it was written by a guy named Thomas Jefferson. Let me click on this one. Is this one any better? There we go. All right, now this video, if you click on that one, not this gross thing that's right here. What in the heck? From the movie The Thing. I like that movie. I'm gonna have to watch that video later. But anyways, can I click on that and save it for later? There you go. There you go. I like that movie. But anyways, you can see my YouTube stuff. This is a great video done a few years ago by celebrities who actually read the Declaration of Independence. And it's pretty cool in terms of what they talk about. So you might watch just like a few minutes of it because they actually recite the Declaration of Independence. It's not propaganda. It's not fake news or anything like that. They're literally just reading the Declaration of Independence as it stands. You can hear what they're talking about and what Jefferson will be writing about. I like this picture here for Jefferson. You've got three dudes here. Can you recognize anyone? This is Jefferson. This guy is Ben Franklin on the left. And in the middle is John Adams. So those three guys get together, and I like this picture because if you look at it, down below here, you see a bunch of trash. Now, it may be McDonald's wrappers, things like that, but instead it's like their original copies of this. So you know that they not necessarily goofed up, but wanted to make this thing perfect, want to make this thing right and accurate. So that's what they did, is they had revision after revision after revision. Anybody who's ever written paper, you know you have plenty of revisions, just to make sure they got this thing right. So this Declaration of Independence is much like Thomas Paine's or not the crisis, that's a different one. Common Sense is that you use step-by-step logic to explain the breakup from Britain. So here's that breakup letter, and it's not very big. If we get to Washington, D.C. this year, you're going to see it at the National Archives, and it's just this big long sheet, and it's exactly as those people are reading it in the video, the celebrity video that I've got linked here, explaining why we're breaking up with you. And it lists the following. It lists the fact that the king took away what's called our inalienable rights. That doesn't mean that we're from a different planet. It just means that these are God-given rights that the government should not take away from us. And these include a few things here in just a second. They include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, before you scribble all those three things down, it's just talking about what the idea of life is, the option of having the ability to really make choices of your own free will and not to have anything crammed down your throat, and to do all these fun things like eating a salad, shooting a line drive basketball, or floating on a beach, or hugging old people. I don't know. Whatever your life decides that you're going to do. Liberty basically means freedom, hence the Statue of Liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the movie with Will Smith, but instead you being able to do what you want to do that makes you happy. Now, as I will always tell you in terms of rules and laws, this is all within the foundational framework of laws. So for instance, if being a serial killer makes you happy, sorry, can't do it. I know some of you are disappointed, but it's all going to be within the framework of the law. So please make sure you understand that. Anything that's illegal, not so much. But they're saying anything within the framework of the law, we should be able to do. We should be able to have those opportunities in life, and the government should not tell us that we cannot do these things. They also said that all men are created equal. Now, I'm not going to lie here. No lies from Mr. Steyer. That this did not include everybody. Okay? So, number one, take the men part with a grain of salt. It doesn't necessarily mean women, because it's not going to happen for a while. It also does not mean African Americans, Native Americans, anybody else. So typically, this is considered to be white property owners. Now, we will define or redefine this later on as to terms of all men are created equal. But your two keywords here are the men and the equal part. So in all honesty, you got to take this whole thing with a grain of salt. That's the idea. Bottom line, understand that we should be equal to what Britain is. We should be able to make our own decisions, and we should be free to do so. That's what this whole thing really means. Now, the other thing, and I'll move this, is they had a list of grievances with Britain. Now, grievances is a fancy word that means formal complaints. That's the definition. It's grievances or formal complaints. So if I have a grievance here at the school, I think that they've done something wrong. I have a specific way in which I can take that up with somebody. And it's formal. It's just not like me complaining on Facebook or Twitter or something. But I actually can go to somebody and say, hey, got this issue. Somebody did me wrong here, or something is illegal that you've done or unethical, and that way I can take care of it. So that's what they're listing here are these grievances, these legit problems that they have with Britain. And these include no taxation without consent. Now, this is, in modern times, popular phrase is no taxation without representation. But in this case, back then, it was no taxation without consent, consent meaning they're giving their okay. So they're saying that if you're going to tax us, we should be able to have some kind of decision in this, and we should be able to say, go ahead and tax us. Now, in all honesty, most people are going to go, yay, taxes, thank you, please give us more. No, they're not going to do that. But at the same time, they should have some kind of say in it at some point. Also, the idea of trial by jury. Trial by jury was taken away from them, and the king ignored the Magna Carta. And remember, the Magna Carta dates back 1215. So they're saying we need to get back to this. because you got away from it and you ignore the trial by jury and are saying we want to get back to these things. I'll just skip through that. And they called King George an unfit ruler. I keep moving myself. Now, that's King George in the middle there. I'm not saying judge him by his blue jumper or whatever, and his 18 kids. I'm not saying he's unfit whatsoever. They're also not saying he's not physically fit. They're just saying unfit, meaning like psychologically. So again, those are fighting words. So the king probably did not take this too well. And so lastly, what they did here is they declared a split from England. I'm trying to see where I want to go with face. They declared a split from England. It's a breakup letter. That's exactly what this is. It's not stating rules. That's the Constitution. This one just says, hey, Britain, we're splitting with you. We know likey, kicking you to the curb, and here is why. And so at this point, it asserts that the colonies are free in independent states. Let's see what this one is. Okay. This one's actually an America, the Story of Us kind of thing about what the Declaration of Independence is and why that's important. I'll add that one in too. You know, that one's voluntary for you to watch, but it's still pretty cool. The History Channel did a good job with it nonetheless. So that's the Declaration of Independence. So those two things, common sense and Declaration of Independence, are pretty important as writings. Clearly, the Declaration of Independence is one of the more important ones historically, but not just for us as Americans, but also for the world. Because the world sees these or sees this and says, it's a pretty good idea in case they ever need to break up with anybody again. So the impacts of this are obvious. This is why we have July 4th. So if you're wondering why you have your drunk uncle setting off fireworks on the 4th of July, that's why. It's because it's Independence Day. It's the day that officially we say we're free. So this is our celebrating the split with England. That's what the Declaration of Independence, that's what the 4th of July is all about. So it was approved on July 4th, 1776, and again, that's what we call Independence Day. Yay, fireworks are fun. And so we go from fighting for our rights as a colony to fighting for a new country. So it's a little bit different in terms of what started as and then what it ended up being. Fighting for rights. So early in the fight, maybe we could have negotiated with England. Maybe we could have made a deal. But in the end, it didn't work out. So we end up saying, smell you later, and making our own country. And one of the phrases that goes along with this is from good old Ben Franklin, when he wasn't throwing the college wrappers on the floor. He said, we must all hang together, or assuredly, we'll hang separately. Now, do you get that one? When we say we must hang together, it means we must come together as a country, or as individuals, as a coming together as a group, and then stick together. Because if we don't, and we lose this, then we're going to hang separately. Meaning, like, we're going to hang separately, because what we're doing is basically treason. And those, like I said, those who signed it could be hanged, and that is proper. So if you email Miss Yoakum and say, "Is it hanged? Is it hung?" I read it works. It works. Hanged is fine. So to you. It was actually signed on August 2nd, but this is the date, July 4th, because, August 2nd, that doesn't really roll off the tongue for Independence Day. So July 4th is the date that we're actually coming up with this and citing our freedom. But it was technically signed on August 2nd. So for all the Poindexters up there, I guess that's the official date, but whatever. Now, when you look at it, some of you are actually probably familiar with this document because John Hancock signed it, and you either know him from the John Hancock Bank commercials or they're like financial service or something. But he signed it so large. It wasn't because he was arrogant, and like some of you guys are signing birthday cards, you sign so the person sees your name first. He wrote it because King George is farsighted, and he could see from far distance, they couldn't see close up. So he wrote it so big so that he could see it. And he basically had no fear that King George was going to look at it and see his name. He's going, too bad. You don't like it. There you go. So basically, he's sticking his neck out there and saying, King George, we don't care about what you're doing. So at this point, this becomes pretty important. The first draft actually had a proposal to end slavery in it. Now that obviously went by the wayside, and this was ironic because Jefferson himself had some slaves. And the signers of the Declaration of Independence included 26 lawyers, 8 merchants, 6 doctors, 7 farmers, 1 printer. You see all those people, but no women. It was all men doing it. So anyways, just a little bit of fun facts there. No teachers either, so that makes me sad. But anyways, there's your document. So we're going to move on from there and talk about the actual war in the next note set. So that one's pretty easy. Just know what common sense was. The pamphlet that got people to think about splitting in the Declaration of Independence, which actually did it. Dear John letter. Smell you later, England. That's what it's all about. There you go. There's your note set. Start studying your vocabulary. And that's it. I'll see you soon. That was creepy. But anyways, see you later. See you later.